What is the major failure mechanism for startups? Number one is the market didn't need it. So you have to start with the market, understand the real problem with the customer. Otherwise, you're going to burn cash and spend a lot of effort trying to do something that the market doesn't need. The biggest problem we face is the psychological barrier that we face that I don't want to change, but I'm using works. And how do you change that in a selling process? That's the heart of every startup, is how you capture the flag or capture that customer. We have an award in the company. It's called the Golden Rabbit Award. It's about finding a rabbit customer, as we call it, an early adopter, early adopter customer who's willing to work with you even when your technology is not complete, to give you very valuable market feedback and direction. The 60-70% of the effort in a startup is really about execution, not the technology.
Hi, Marc. Thank you very much for joining us today on the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about Biobond and what it does?
So Biobond's mission is to replace petroleum that's in these very large adhesives and coatings market. And the problem to solve here is to make them safer and healthier with plant-based materials, getting rid of the microplastics, getting rid of the VOCs, including the formaldehyde, the odors that emanate from these coatings and adhesives. And also the third part is the overall pollution in the air and the water and the soil from PFAS, or what they call forever chemicals. So basically, to make safer and healthier adhesives and coatings.
So what is your role at Biobond at the moment? What does your day-to-day actually look like at this stage of the business?
Well, to say the least, quite busy. We're shipping product, and that we're very proud of that. Very proud of the team. My role is I was recruited into this startup. I am not the founder, and I am the CEO, and I'm a board member. And my job is to create the vision and the mission and de-risking the technology to bring it to the market. My background is about bringing high volume materials to the market for useful and effective products. So I'm not the smartest guy in the room, Chris, but I work with technologists to help realize or cross the chasm between the technology or scientific world and useful products in everyday life, either in business or in your home.
It's
So that's
interesting. You
my-
mentioned the chasm there, and a lot of people talk about that whole early adopter, early majority chasm. But a lot of people forget there is a chasm before that, which is actually commercializing a new product. And it sounds like that's where you work.
That's right. I didn't learn this in school. You get it from the hard knocks of running startups. And realize, because I've been in a startup in which the technology didn't exist, it was just a patent, and the market didn't exist. I'm not going to do those business models anymore. That's a little bit too difficult. But my career now is working with startups to help them really execute. 60% of the effort, the 70% of the effort in a startup is really about execution, not the technology. And I think once founders or startup principals understand that, they really have a much better chance of success.
Dig into that a little bit, because I find that a lot of founders in impact-driven companies, sustainability companies, tend to be like the technology science side of things. When you say execution, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean in terms of getting that into the market? Do you mean in terms of customer success? Talk to me a bit about that.
There's a lot of things you can read online. You can use AI. You can type in, what is the major failure mechanism for startups, especially in ag tech or these material startups? Number one is the market didn't need it. So you have to start with the market, understand the real problem with the customer and drive it back. And otherwise, you're going to burn cash and spend a lot of effort trying to do something that the market doesn't need. So that's a big mistake, infatuated with the technology, and you forgot about asking if anybody really needed it. And it's not you that needs to determine that, it's the customer. Because the bottom line, somebody needs to buy what you do. Or what are you going to do? Buy from yourself? Well, that only works as much money as you have to do that with. And that's not what investors are looking for. They're looking for product market fit or market fit. There's many ways they determine this, but bottom line, it's finding a customer problem that needs to be solved that they would pay for. So it's not only performance, but also it's the price. Will they place a purchase order and be a satisfied customer?
Talk to me about how you found product market fit at Biobond.
Well, it's interesting. We have an award in the company. It's called the Golden Rabbit Award. And that is front and center that any employee can win. And it's about accelerating to the customer, finding a rabbit customer, as we call it, an early adopter, early adopter customer who's willing to work with you even when your technology is not complete, to give you very valuable market feedback and direction about what's needed in their application, whether it's performance or cost, or even the equipment that they use, especially, Biobond is a material tech company. There's the third element. It has to work on the way the industry works. Founders make that mistake. Bottom line, they create the technology, but it requires a lot of CapEx, or they ask the customer to change the way that they operate or work. And sometimes that in itself kills the deal. Let somebody else take that risk, of buying new equipment and a new process. So for us, we look and qualify a rabbit customer, intensely do this at the beginning of any product area that we're looking at, and find that golden rabbit customer who's willing that doesn't have a complicated decision structure like sometimes it's not a big company. It's a smaller size company, and they're willing to work with us and show us what the problem is and define the metrics and test quickly. So we like to test very fast. A lot of the large companies, the R&D people don't even know where the customer is sometimes. They don't talk to them, but not this company. We drive it very fast at the beginning, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, there's a number of things there. It's that whole software tech bro thing of fail and learn fast. If you
Right.
talk to the market constantly and get it out quickly, you can learn from it, iterate the product, get better, learn more what the customers actually want, and find that product market fit quicker.
Another thought here, and AI is really speeding it up even more. So I had to do something obvious in the podcast today. Say the obvious, but I think everybody feels the pressure, and you've got to learn how to use these tools quickly.
Those rabbit customers, how is it you go out into the market and actually find those? Because especially in, I guess, quite a risk-averse and maybe traditional industries that you're going after, is it a lot of kind of going to conferences and speaking to people? Is it lots of outreach, account-based management? Talk to me a bit about that.
Well, what we do is at the beginning of any project or market area, we do a go-to-market strategy, a deep dive in the market to understand the players. And we create what's called a value stack, because there's always more than one part. Let's talk about coatings. Architects, they have a say in what to use. General contractors have a say. The contractors who actually install the coating are part of it. But then also the end customer is the owner, building owner, facility manager, facility operator. They're the ones that actually place the PO. You start to look at this value stack, and we use LinkedIn a lot to reach out. We use AI. Okay, give me the top customers in this area. We'll do a top 20. But sometimes the big customers are not the ones to go talk to. So actually, we're looking at, there's always maybe the smaller players, like small contractors, and then there's the mid-size and then the large ones. So we will typically go after the middle of the market to find that golden rabbit, or we'll go down even to a smaller group to prove ourselves with maybe a unique application or a more difficult application, or a niche application. So we do a lot of go-to-market study about that value stack. So let me give you Another example, and we're going after food processing and distribution. There's 42,000 sites in the US, according to the USDA. And how do you reach them? And there's from small to large. But we look at it from where does the food come from? It'll come from the field. It'll go to a distribution center and get washed. Then it'll go on another truck and go to another distribution center. And then it will finally go to the Walmarts or the Aldis or the Costcos, and then into the stores, into their coolers or floors, areas, or delis, and then you finally go in and buy it. So that represents kind of a whole value stack, and you can find parts of it that's willing to work with you. Because all along the way, you need to have coatings. We make protective antimicrobial coatings that can help resist E. coli, listeria, salmonella. So again, that's an example of a market of which we did a coating to solve an actual problem the industry has through the whole value stack.
I'm interested to know, what is a major shift you've seen in either the industrial materials or coating space over the last few years that's kind of impacted your growth approach?
Well, there's been fits and starts about these environmentally friendly materials and in both coatings and adhesive. 10 years ago, a lot of money went into this area, and hundreds of millions of dollars. And they looked at these companies were trying to change the world overnight. And they wanted to build a $200 million fermentation facility to convert plant-based into some useful intermediate that would go into a coating or an adhesive. And all of them are out of business today, Chris. Why? Because they forgot after they finished with the investment and could make the intermediate, they forgot about who's going to buy it. So again, I think the consideration here is the business model that Biobond has is maybe deconstructed. It's reverse. We start over here with the market itself, understanding the problems to solve, and then we formulate with everyday available intermediates, and then we can make high volume intermediates that improve. So I guess your question is like, what's different? Well, I think failure. There was so much that failed, and the investors really don't want to invest in this area. Ag tech is 80% down in terms of investment. Of course, a lot of it's going to AI. We still think there's a way to crack this market to safer and healthier adhesives and coatings by using a different approach of good, better, best. So in the past, everybody was trying to do the Super Bowl win, but not for us. We'll take 1 quarter and a touchdown. That's all we need. So we have a good, better, best. So we can take 25% of petroleum out of coatings and adhesives now, and it's price performance. This market, you have to be equal to or better in performance than what they buy today. It has to be equal to or less than in price. It has to work on their existing way of applying it, because a lot of the market really doesn't care. We can't afford biobase or it doesn't perform. So the change today is that the market is more mature. There's better intermediates, but we have the secret sauce of how to make water-based, plant-based coatings and adhesives. So some of it is secret sauce and part of our technology that we filed over 24 patents so far, provisional patents. So the difference, I think, is timing is everything. Let's talk about that. Market timing determines your success. You can have a great idea, be 10 years too early. I did one of those startups. It's very painful. It doesn't exist anymore. The company failed. Timing's everything. So I think the timing is right in this middle part of this decade. So I think the other thing that's changed is time has passed. Failure has set in. We learned our lesson, and the technologies are more available to get to biobase.
I want to double click into the actually selling the product into companies then, because as I said before, it feels like quite a risk-averse industry, and like rightly so. They're creating coatings, adhesives, they're building buildings, things like that. How have you kind of navigated that resistance against taking on a new product?
Chris, you've asked probably the biggest problem we face is the psychological barrier that we face that I don't want to change. What I'm using works. And how do you change that in a selling process? Because when you are looking at a startup, all of the investors want to know when you're getting market traction, that sales funnel. And the various, they'll ask, how long is that sales funnel? What are the various stages of that sales funnel? How do you navigate those stages? So that's the heart of every startup is how you capture the flag or capture that customer. And in some cases, we've had a tough time, especially with cabinet makers. They don't want to change. I'm happy with using what's out there. What's your difference? Or with we don't even talk to you. We can't even get in the front door. So what we do is we really work hard on the value proposition to try to understand and listen to if we don't go in and try to sell. We ask, what's your problem? How can we help? We're not here to, we can go away very quickly. We don't want to bother you. You've got a business to run, but do you have any problems that we can solve? And it's interesting. One customer said, my customer is telling me that I have to use bio-base and get rid of the formaldehyde. Bingo. That's what we do. So it's a probing based on the category, because we do textile, we do construction, furniture, every one of them have a unique issue. In Mexico, we're working with a boxing glove company. Their adhesive is solvent and it smells and gives their workers headaches. So we asked, again, what are your problems? Well, our problem is our workers get headaches. It's solvent based. Do you have something that still works in our application, binding the leather and the non-woven together, and it's cost effective, but it doesn't smell? So we've been working with them. It's a very famous company. They're risk-averse, but they have a real big problem to solve in that they have attrition because the workers don't want to work in that factory. And as you know, labor is not as plentiful as it used to be. So I think the key is if we can save them money on labor cost because the product is safer and healthier, the people want to work there. Like with contractors, they don't have to mask up anymore when they coat the floor.
Mm.
It's in 100-degree weather. That makes a big difference to the everyday worker who is actually doing the application. That's money on the table. And that's where
Yeah.
maybe we're being successful is it's got to perform, but if you can save me money, because we're mostly B2B, then the ears start to open up a little bit and we get that trial. So it's a step-by-step process. I mean, can I save you money? And can I solve a problem? Like the smell or something like that. And then you try to, can I give you a free trial? So the key for us is, can we get a trial? If we get a trial, we normally get an order. But the other thing that is pushing the market is regulation.
What would you say is the biggest commercial growth challenge so far? Is it more in terms of like the awareness? Is it the education? Is it more that sales side?
That's our problem. We have a lot of we're technically very strong, and we've gotten through all the certifications, and we did the alpha site trials. Like we coated 50,000 square feet in alpha site trials in coatings, and we've run wood lamination with some very large players in the industry. Our major challenge is sales capacity. So sales, it's really getting, you can hire with too much experience. You can hire with not enough experience. It's a real fine balance, this sales capacity, what I call sales capacity. It's people that really know how to, approach dissect a big account or a mid-size or small account and understand how to move them down through an evaluation of our product. It's sales capacity, and that's my biggest challenge. But having great salespeople, it's a very big part of this market traction. If you're a founder, don't forget that. Don't hire the salespeople too late. It takes some time to understand what you're doing and how to be comfortable selling and start to sell. It always takes longer than you think.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because we talked about the product market fit earlier, but there's also another side to this, and it's what kind of growth do you want your business to have? Like, is it going to be products-led growth where you have a free trial and then everyone goes for it? Is it going to be market-led growth where you're kind of approaching the market with things like LinkedIn and content creation and stuff like that? Or is it going to be sales-led where you actually have boots on the ground, going to companies and speaking to them? And I think that's the other side that a lot of people forget about. So yeah, it sounds like you've gone very much for that kind of sales-led opportunity where you can actually create those relationships.
I call it the air game and the ground game. Just doing digital marketing is not enough. Yes, you need to do it. It's very effective. It's changing rapidly. It's lower cost, but it just leads to a lead. It's just to open the door to the customer. You've got to have a very strong ground game, especially in this business. So I'll leave it at that. So I think balancing those two is really a challenge in this fast moving AI based market. People get carried away with the AI part of it. We're sitting in front of the computers all day long, and it doesn't replace going out and really understanding, since we're a solution in somebody's process or product. Yeah, video helps, but it's another form of face to face. It does save on the travel. But when you go into somebody's factory and you're right face to face with the production people, that's where you just learn volumes.
I think of it as it's that relationship thing, especially in risk-averse industries or traditional industries, whatever it might be. Networking and actually building those relationships and building that human-to-human connection matters so much more.
Brand is about trust. Your company is about trust. And
Yep.
so how do you build trust? I mean, it's a whole mechanism or steps with a customer to build the trust in what you do and what you say. And we also call it walking the talk. And yeah, AI can do a lot of talking too, right? Gosh, but you got to walk the talk, and that the ground game, the face, getting and understanding their problems, there's not a replacement for it.
Is there anything you've tried in terms of sales and marketing that didn't work or was very underwhelming?
Probably there's a whole list. Let me pick one. Let's see, I think, the cadence of how you sell is very important. I mean, you can be too pushy, you be too fast, too slow. There's a just right gear, and every customer has a different gear. So one of the things I do in hiring salespeople is I really try to understand if they know how to use different gears, or if they have different gears, and if they can switch gears depending on who they're talking to. And so the cadence here of how you sell, I think, is I've gone too fast or I've gone too slow. I think we had a good example in one account. We were too slow, and they were very, very interested. But then all of a sudden they said, well, okay, we're not going to go trial your product because we're too busy. Well, that's that objection. How do you take apart something is behind the door? Okay, when they do something like that, you've worked and everything was going well, and all of a sudden they're throwing that objection down. I don't have time, and it's probably because we were either going too fast or too slow, or not spending enough time. I'm not sure. So the cadence of how you sell and the gear that you use with a particular customer, they're all different in a way. Maybe they're in the same industry, but they have different considerations. So I would say that's probably the top of the list. And again, it goes back to the being very capable of how to hire a sales group and train them and get them ready to deal with a customer. On the digital marketing side, I think you got to be very careful. Like in Mexico, they don't read their emails anymore because there's too much scamming going on. But we would not know that unless we had a country manager in Mexico to tell us. So that's another example. We can do everything and reach our contractors by email. And this lady our country manager in Mexico's, no, you're not. Nobody reads emails anymore because they're all scam and they don't answer their phone because of all the scams. It's, so how do you reach them? Well, you're back to the ground game. So in Korea, I mean, it's very hierarchical. They don't, some of it just depends, they don't want to make a decision. I got a good job and I'm not going to rock the boat, perhaps, so how do you deal with that? Again, it's how you pick apart an organization, a company, and understand, how long it's going to map out a strategy of how long it's going to take you to sell and what's important to them based on the past. I've sat in a lobby with other salespeople in Silicon Valley. I was in a marketing and sales role. I was a product manager. I started talking to my competitors or other salespeople. How do you sell to this company? It was really interesting to hear, oh, this is what you need to do. And don't talk to the quality people because they're mean. Don't start there. Yeah, you have to deal with the quality people, but don't start there.
12 months from now, a year out from now, what does success look like for Biobond?
I think first we must sort out our sales capacity issue. It's paramount. It will take longer than we think. We need to plan for that and be persistent about it, very clear what we need to do when we need to do it. But it is certainly getting the market moving in the US, especially in coatings. Adhesives are going to take a longer time. And I think having as we look back, we need to have a couple of strategics on board. This is true validation. And you know, in a startup, you're always raising money. You never stop raising money. You think just because you closed a round, you need to raise money when you don't need money. So getting a strategic on board is a big KPI for us, or a couple of strategics that we can point to and say that we were validated with this company. That kind of word of mouth is tremendous. And sometimes we can't talk about it. It's under NDA, but again, you find these rabbits that can take you to the market that you can point to that makes a difference. So I would say the sales capacity issue solved. So I think three things. I mean, it's getting the sales capacity, getting some strategics aboard, and also making sure the markets that we're in are working well, that we're building revenue from month to month to month, the sales. I mean, our target's probably 3 to 5 million next year, organic growth. But then we also have some other plans. I think this company could be a $500 million company. And we're working on some impact projects that can bring that kind of revenue and profit to the company is um, because investors want a payback. When they give you money, they want the money back. Okay? I mean, it's not the product, it's not the technology, it's when you're gonna give me my money back. Okay?
let's let's dig into that a little bit. Finally, I want to ask you about the fundraising then, because obviously you have a good history of doing that kind of thing. What kind of advice would you have for other founders about that fundraising side of things?
Number one problem or failure mode for startups is the market doesn't want your product. Number two, lack of funding. Right
The
next
investors
to
don't
it.
want your products.
Yeah, they don't give you the money because you didn't get number one. But, fundraising in this environment is really difficult and very difficult. I think we've had a tremendous run. Venture capital has served its purpose, funding so many great companies. However, I see that the traditional venture capital way is kind of becoming less efficient. And this is my hot button. You raise money from people that know you, and if they don't know you, it's really difficult to get them to invest. They invest in who they know. It's the good old boy network. But we see that changing. It's not family offices. My message to the founders out there, family offices are now just becoming really involved with startups. And that should be considered as you build your strategic fundraising strategy is family offices. And normally they were behind the door. They didn't even have a nameplate. Couldn't find their address, but now they're more and more front and center. They're social impact investing. They want to see the world a better place, a healthier place. I would say that that money is, and there's billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars out there. But what I really like is, and the reason why I joined Biobond is because our fund, or the GFRP, Generation Food Rural Partner Fund, has funded Biobond differently. And because the big problem is the valley of death, the startup valley of death. You do your prototype, you can't get market traction because you need money. They're not going to give you money because you need market traction. It's a circular reference, and everybody is so proud that 97% of the startups fail. I think that's horrible. So GFRP actually is doing something different. They are building companies themselves. Some of them, they call it a different name, but venture studios, but I think it's a little bit different. So they actually go out and look at technology from universities or founders, and then they will build an investment thesis. And if it gets a thumbs up, they open a bank account, they register a company, they open up a bank account, and they put $1 million in, and then they hire the CEO. And so my job is to de-risk the investment thesis, but I joined because they invest twice. So I know the startup valley of death is out there. It's waiting for me. I have been there, and I have the money. I didn't have to spend time raising money because of this way. And I'm getting through the startup valley of death. We got 8 products now in the market testing that are receiving POs. And it's because of their approach to the market has eliminated or reduced the risk of the valley of death. Of course, if the technology is not going to work, you should probably close the company down. But this way is a much more efficient and effective way for a startup to be built. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And now we're raising our Series A round. And guess who's our lead? Our Series seed. And that makes my job much easier when you have a lead for that Series A round. So I think the venture world is changing rapidly. There's strategics, there's family offices, there's PE. I mean, there's a lot more alternatives, and even crowdfunding that is available to fund startups. And it's really important. It is the one of the engines that creates a change in industries.
Mark, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great conversation. How can people learn more about Biobond? Maybe buy some products?
Well, very soon you're going to be able to buy them on our website, www.biobond.com.
Mark, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. All the best.